Hey, and welcome back to Knit Your Stress Away. My name is Nadine Medina. I am the host here on the podcast. And today we're talking about something that you may have experienced. If you're a knitter, you certainly have experienced it, even if you didn't have a name for it. You sit down, you knit for a few minutes, and all of a sudden, 25 minutes have passed, your shoulders have dropped, your brain is a little quieter, and you feel more like yourself again. And that feeling, that's what we're going to talk about today. We're talking about flow and why knitting can help you get into your flow state. And also why that feels so good in a world where your attention is getting pulled into a million directions every single day. So let's get into this episode. Welcome to Knit Your Stress Away, the podcast for moms who want to knit instead of scroll. I'm Nadine, and I help overwhelmed moms swap doom scrolling for knitting so you can finally have 20 minutes of peace that don't involve a screen. Whether you're brand new to knitting or getting back into it after years away, this show will teach you how to use knitting as a tool to calm your nervous system, set boundaries with your phone, and reclaim time for yourself without the guilt. No fancy techniques, no complicated patterns, just some practical tips, real talk about stress and motherhood, and simple ways to make knitting a part of your everyday life. So put down the phone, grab your needles, and let's knit the stress away, one stitch at a time. All right, let's start by talking about what flow actually is. So it is basically that state where you're fully absorbed in what you're doing. You are not necessarily overthinking anything. You are not checking your phone every 12 seconds. Sometimes, even while I'm knitting, I do that. But then once I get into flow, I totally forget about my phone. You are not mentally writing tomorrow's to-do list. You are just doing the thing. You're in it. You're flowing, right? Researchers describe flow as deep engagement in an activity, especially when the activity has just enough challenge to hold your attention without completely overwhelming you. So, guess what? That's why knitting works so well. Knitting asks enough of your brain to keep you present because you still have to perform the stitch, right? You have to sometimes count, and other times you have to follow maybe a little bit of a more complicated pattern, or at the very least, you have to know where you are in the pattern and keeping track and working with your hands. But once you've got the basics down of how to do that, it's like driving a car. You don't have to think about it as much. And it's definitely not hard in a way where it like spikes your stress and you're like freaking out because you can't get it right. So that is when it all lands in that sweet spot. It is engaging, but it's also repetitive and it's calming. So let's talk about why modern life makes flow really hard. The problem is flow is hard to access when your attention is constantly getting chopped up and it's left, right, back and forth, all over the place. And for us, and especially for us moms, that is basically the default setting. And while you're making dinner, you have to answer a question, while you're half listening to a voice memo, while mentally remembering that tomorrow is some sort of spirit day or dress up day or whatever else in school, while grabbing your phone because you forgot something else. And then you also kind of want to get a relief. So you grab your phone to scroll Instagram. Before you know it, you're all over the place. Your brain rarely gets to stay with one thing long enough to even settle into something remotely resembling flow. And at night, when you finally are like, okay, I'm done, time to zone out, scrolling always feels like the easiest option. And that is where our brain goes, right? Because our brain wants to preserve energy. So we always go the path of least resistance when it comes to picking what's next. And I mean, that's why we don't want to fold laundry, quite frankly. Got a laundry pile sitting right here in front of me. Yeah, that takes some serious, let's do this kind of thought. It's not the easiest option. It's not the funnest thing. So brain doesn't want to do it. But usually what happens, the scrolling might be the easiest option and grabbing your phone is certainly the easiest option. It's always there, right? We're rarely hiding our phone from ourselves, although I do recommend that sometimes. But scrolling is the opposite of flow. It is fragmented attention. And you know this when you are on Instagram. It is like this, right? It's fast, 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 fast novelty, tiny hits of stimulation, and it happens over and over and over. And then you throw the dopamine in there when you get a notification or when you get a text message or a DM, and your brain is literally bouncing all over the place. You don't even notice it anymore because you do it so often. And by you, I mean me/us, because we all do it. But knitting or crocheting, on the other hand, lets your attention actually rest and land somewhere in a place where it's going to stay. And I think a lot of us are actually starving for that, but we're not realizing it. And we are not doing it because, once again, it may not be the path of least resistance. We might have to find our pattern or our project. We have to figure out what we're going to use. We have to then grab our stuff and we have to settle in and we have to realize, oh, I forgot something, or I don't remember where I was in my pattern. So we go the easy route, and it's not always the best route. What I love about knitting is that it gives your brain one job. It is one job. Stitch, 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 right? Knit this row. It's a small motion that is generally repeated again and again, unless, of course, you have a bit of a complicated pattern, but at the same time, you're not dropping your needles out of your hands. You still have those in your hands, so it's still the same job. And there's something really regulating about that. If you listen to last week's episode about the nervous system and the two different modes of your nervous system, you know why regulating is so important. And again, I'm not trying to make knitting sound like, magical and like it's going to solve all your problems, because it won't. But there is a reason that it feels different, because repetitive handcrafts, they will support calm, attention, and subjective well-being. And many knitters describe the experience as meditative or flow-like once they're in it. This research is really promising, if you ask me. It is so amazing that something that simple can give you that much of a relief and that can give you that much of a boost. Honestly, it's a mental boost. It's a physical health boost. And I think that's fantastic. But I do not need knitting to be a miracle cure. I just want to make sure that you understand me here. But I do need it to help me not end every single night feeling frazzled, fried, and pretty annoyed at other people on the internet and at the news. And it does, especially when I make that intentional choice. But that's the part that we have to actively work on, right? Because instead of saying, I don't care, and it is the phone now, or not even being aware of the fact that we're grabbing our phone mindlessly, which is probably in most cases what's happening, we do need a little bit of willpower every here or there to actually grab that instead of that. Okay. My personal favorite is to leave your phone out of your bedroom so that you don't even have the temptation to grab it, and take your knitting project with you instead. And the other thing is, place your project where you would normally place your phone. So if you have a place where your phone sits during the day, like for me, it's usually somewhere in my kitchen. If I take my knitting project intentionally in the morning and I place it somewhere near there, then it's so much easier to remember. And, that's the thing. The more you remove any of those barriers between you and the knitting project, there is no barrier between you and your phone. I mean, in worst case, your phone is always in your pocket. I hope that's not the case. I try to leave it some places sometimes where it's just like, okay, I don't want it on me. I just don't want to, because I know myself too well, and I will grab it and I will look at it, and it's just going to happen. I just can't resist it sometimes. So I'm trying to create these physical boundaries between me and the phone. But as much as I try to create those boundaries between the phone and myself, I want to take them down between me and my knitting project. And if I have to go 3 stories up or across 5 rooms to find it, yeah, I'll grab that phone instead, especially if I only have 5 to 10 minutes. It's just not worth it, right? So if you want more of that flow feeling and that flow state, I have a few things that may help. So number 1, pick an easy project. Not the one that has lace or 6 different colors, a chart, and a very complicated pattern that you really, really have to focus on. So do yourself a favor, pick an easy, what I call mindless project, and let the project be repetitive so that you can sink into that and really relax into the repetition of the project. I promise the flow state will come a lot sooner if you have a repetitive, mindless project. A couple of episodes ago, I don't remember which one it was, but I think it was like 3-4 episodes ago, I had a whole list of projects that fit this bill that you can pick up and put down whenever, and you do not have to think twice about where you were in the pattern. So scroll back a little bit in your podcast app after this one and go find that one if you need a little bit of inspiration. Number 2, remove a distraction. I'm not saying all distractions. We're not trying to become monks or anything, but maybe put your phone across the room. Maybe turn on some music instead and, help your brain get a little bit more into that flow state. But I would definitely encourage you to remove distraction that you know you're going to reach for or that you know is going to pull you in as you're trying to focus on your knitting. Number 3, let it be enough. You do not need a full evening ritual with candles, a journal, and tea, and a cute mug, and all the awesome things that you see online. Let's just be freaking real here. Yes, it looks great. Also, it's so aesthetic. My girls, they use the word aesthetic all the time. But look, in order to get into the flow state, it doesn't have to be Instagram post-worthy, Pinteresty, or whatever the heck, right? You can literally sit down on your couch with average lighting. Get yourself a little neck light. I actually have a really great neck light for knitting. Let me make a note so I can put that down in the show notes. It's called Lumos, and it's my favorite. And knit a couple rows and get yourself into that flow state, for crying out loud. That's enough, okay? You do not have to overdo it because 10 to 1, it's not going to happen if you put that much pressure on yourself. So make it simple. Here's your takeaway from this very short and sweet episode, which I hope you really enjoyed because, man, I love getting into flow state. It's the best. Flow feels good because your brain finally gets to stop ping-ponging and jumping around all over the place. Knitting helps create that feeling because it's repetitive, it's grounding, it's just engaging enough to hold your attention without sending you into overwhelm again, where you're then like, oh my gosh, why am I doing this? This ain't flowing. This is too much. We don't want that. So you got to find the balance. Again, go back a couple episodes, find a simple project that you can also just pick up and not worry about. Next week, let's talk about cortisol. Yes, we mentioned it last episode. It's the stress hormone that a lot of us have too much kind of floating around inside of us. And we're going to talk about what knitting might be doing to help lower your stress load and lower your cortisol. And that, I think, is so amazing. If this episode made you realize your brain has not focused on one peaceful thing in approximately 700 years, go ahead and grab yourself a copy of Swap Scrolling for Stitching, my 3-day reset at theknittingmamas.com. This reset will help you find pockets in your time where you can incorporate knitting more. If you're like me and you're like, yes, love knitting, been knitting, but man, I'm not making enough time for it. This is for you. It's also for you if you're like, yeah, I'm just getting back into it and I'm not quite sure what I need or how to start again or how to do it or what patterns to pick. Got you covered there too. You have a cheat sheet in there that tells you exactly what to buy, exactly where to buy it so that you have your tools ready to go by the weekend and you can hit the ground running and start knitting. And it also has a knitting lingo glossary, which is actually one of my favorite parts because, dude, it's its own language. And yeah, we all could use some help there. So grab your PDF there, I would print it out, and then that glossary can go straight into your knitting bag, which is awesome. It's just a 1-pager, and you can pop it in there so that when you have a pattern, you're like, what the heck? I don't know what that means. You can check your glossary, and it's right there. All right. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Again, this was a short and sweet one. I hope you got something out of it, and let's get into the flow state. I'll see you next week right here on the Knit Your Stress Away podcast. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you're ready to swap your screen time for some peace, I made you a free guide called Swap Scrolling for Stitching. It'll teach you what to buy, how to start, and how to build the habit, even if you've never touched needles before. And if you already knit or crochet, this will help you build that habit into your life consistently. Link is in the show notes. And if this episode resonated with you, I would love it if you'd leave a quick review. This helps other stressed moms find the show and discover that there's a better way to unwind than scrolling Instagram at 10 p.m. Follow me on Instagram at @thenittingmamas_ for daily tips, and I'll see you next week for another episode.